Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to TowerCoverage.com's application and demo, as well as Q&A. My name's Dennis. I'm going to be giving this presentation, and I hope everybody has an open mind and has plenty of questions for us. Speaking of questions, I'd like to make sure that everybody here has the questions pane open so that you can go ahead and type any questions that you may have. If you don't have that open in your webinar application, simply click View and then Questions, and that should show a little questions pane for you that you can go ahead and type any questions. Any questions that you may have, please go ahead and type them in at any time. We'll take those questions as they come in, as well as it pertains to the slides that we are showing, as well as the product demo. We have a number of users here that are active users, in other words, premium account holders, as well as some users that have never used the TowerCoverage.com system. So what we're going to go ahead and do is cover a number of different things in our Tower Coverage system. We're going to cover the basics of how to use the system, and we're also going to cover some of the features that we offer inside the system and show you how to use some of those. So let's go ahead and switch over to our live view here. We're going to make sure everybody's screen catches up. We do have a couple people that the screens aren't going super quick, but we'll get started here. Again, if you have any questions, type those into that questions and answers or questions pane so that we can get those answered for you. So for those of you that have never seen TowerCoverage.com, of course the website TowerCoverage.com is the easiest to get to. Once you get there, you will simply be able to create an account by logging in. So if I go ahead and log out here, of course you'll see the home page here. You can create a free account simply by clicking that. You can upgrade that to a paid account if you wish to during that process, or you can go ahead and try a free account. Now the free account is limited to just the just a 2.4 gigahertz coverage map, but if you look at our Facebook page a little bit, and let me see if I can pull that up here. I believe it's facebook.com/mywificoverage.com. If I click on it, it might help there. But once you are on our Facebook page, every once in a while in here, you will see that we'll post a promo code. So make sure if you would like to use a promo code, or if you'd like to demo the site a little further than the free account allows, we do offer some promo codes every once in a while. We usually post them on Facebook, or of course you can join our mailing list as well. For those of you that have an account, obviously you will need to log into your account to use all of our features. Now once you log into our account, you will obviously see that we have a number of different sites, coverages, multi-maps, links, and radio systems. The whole point of TowerCoverage.com is to create a coverage area of where we think, based on the frequencies, based on the terrain data, and based on land cover data, where your frequencies will cover. Now, of course, this is a simulation, so the simulation is only as good as you put data in. So if you put bad data in, of course, the simulation will be bad. A past user that has now signed up for service, I don't believe he's on here, but if you are, then you know who I'm talking about. We had a user that had a problem where the coverages were very small compared to what he was actually getting. What ended up happening was that he was using both a small radio as well as a reflector. And the reflector increased the gain. So in that case, the CPE equipment, instead of being 6 dB, was actually like 18 dB. So again, one of those things, putting good data in gets good data out, or let better data out. So I want to just go ahead and click on one of our small repeaters here, just show you what a coverage map looks like if you haven't seen one. Now, in our area, we're just south of St. Louis, we have a lot of trees, a lot of hills, a lot of items, vegetation, things like that, that will affect our signal. Now this is one of our micro pops. It's one of our smaller sites, and as you can see, if I zoom in here, you'll be able to see all the trees in the small site, and it gives you a sense of coverage. Now this one again is one of our very small sites. I believe the antenna height is only a few feet above the ground. It's not very high at all. But let's say we go back to one of our larger sites. So let's go to this particular site. This one here, pretty much as long as we can see the tower, we have coverage. And you'll notice that we have a lot of coverage in here, and we have a lot of little hills and valleys in here. One of the map options we have is terrain. A lot of people underestimate this little feature. What the terrain does is changes our Google map to show us our terrain data. And if you notice in our area, we have, again, lots of small hills and valleys. And as you can see, our coverage follows right along top of those hilltops in many cases. So, of course, people in the valley are going to have a hard time getting coverage. So that's the basic idea, how to get that coverage. Now, we have a whole bunch of extra features in here that we're going to show you, of course, but I wanted to at least get you familiar with what the end result is. The very first thing that we need to do whenever we create an account is to create a new site. And a new site is exactly what it sounds like. It is a new site that has the ability for us to say, here is where our tower location is. Now, this site could be a client site. Maybe it's a building, a smokestack, a water tower. Again, it could be many different things, but it is simply a point in which we are going to create a coverage typically from. We have a number of options here. Notice we have a site name. Of course, we need to put that in. We need longitude and latitude. We store that data in decimal form, but if you have the DMS form, which is degrees, minutes, seconds, you can go ahead and type that in here, and it will automatically convert it for you. We've given you both a description and a group field for you to be able to group or give a description for that tower site, just informational only. As well, we can specify a default height. Now, I want to make it very clear here that the default height is exactly what it is. It's a default. That does not necessarily mean you have to generate a coverage with that height. Just whenever you select that tower or this particular site, the height will automatically be put in there unless you wish to change it. Something else many of you may have just noticed is that we have a import sites from CSV option now. This allows you to take a whole bunch of sites, again, site name, longitude, latitude, description, default height, even group, and put them into a CSV file and import them very quickly so that you don't have to. Something else that you can use, notice we have this Google map here. If we sit here and move our pin, notice our longitude and latitude here, or latitude and longitude, apologize, moves when we move our pin. The reason for that is because we are simply geolocating that pin and gives us an option to create a site simply by locating a tower. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to kind of zoom in here. I'm going to be looking for our Hillsboro Tower here. Sits right next to Hillsboro Tower and Tent House Road. So we're going to keep zooming in. Now, notice once we get so close, we really can't see nothing. We still have this satellite view. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the satellite view. And again, we can zoom all the way in. And as, again, Google Maps loads, notice we have a tower site. There we go. So if we wanted to generate this map, we'll go call it Test Hillsboro. Notice our longitude, latitude is already in there, and we can also specify a default height. In our case, it's a 400-foot location. So now, in our site list, we should have our Test Hillsboro. There it is right here. And of course, we can go back in there and edit that if we wish to. It's totally up to you. The next thing, now that we have a tower site, is to create a coverage. Now, normally we just jump straight to a new coverage, and we can spec all of our system performance options. We have another feature that was just introduced a few weeks back called our radio system, though, that I'd like to talk about first. The radio system is basically 90% of all these options. If I go to our radio system, and then I'm just going to select one of our radio systems, notice we have a radio system name, we have a client average height, client receiving gain, our transmitter type, gain, frequency, line loss, as well as our typical system performance variables. The minimum signal, which is the RX threshold, the minimum signal that we wish to show on our map, and then if we wish to show a strong signal, basically our strong dB signal margin, which is in this case 4. So from -65, we'll show one color, which is our weak color, again right here, and we can specify these colors. From 65 to a 61, we're going to display this red color. Anything above that, though, we're going to display this color here. our strong color. One of the questions we get asked a lot is about the required reliability. The required reliability is really a adjustment based on your area. In our area, we have oak trees, we have pin oak trees, we have different types of trees, but we don't have a whole lot of pine trees. In areas where you'd have a lot of pine trees, you would probably want to turn this required reliability to be moderately conservative, if not extremely conservative. What this does is simply adds additional statistical loss so that we can generate a map that is more accurate. Your usages will vary, and my recommendation is to get a few customers that you've installed and go ahead and put or find their signal values and adjust the required reliability to your best needs, to your area, to show how well that works. Again, the best putting the best data in will get you the best data out. Once you have specified a radio system, now whenever you go back to your new coverages, you can simply select a radio system, and all those performance variables will automatically be filled in for you. As well with that is you can also, of course, modify those. So if we go ahead and let's see if we can do this here, find our test Hillsboro link and select our radio system. Nope. There you go, radio system, and then our test Hillsboro tower. Notice our default antenna height is already put in. Notice all of our information, our transmit gain, all that information has already been put in. All we need to do is put a test map in. Test map name, I should rephrase that. Also, I want to draw your attention to this. These are our pop-outs. You may have already seen these. Again, simply put your mouse over these. We've really tried to get plenty of information in this for you so that you know what each option does. Once you've selected all that, now we can just simply create a new coverage. Now, in the background, our system goes ahead, queues that coverage up, and tosses it into our renderer system. Notice right here, our test map is already starting to render. We have about 50% done right there. And notice that the web page will automatically refresh as that's rendering. Now you can go ahead and create another coverage, go ahead and do other things on the site while we wait for that to render. Typically our average render time is still under 60 seconds. However, there are of course busy times on the servers and we are getting ready to implement about another, I don't know, 10 servers in our clusters. So we should have a lot more cores as well available for this. But as you can see, it's going quite quickly. We got a 90-degree sector, 15.24, 99%. Once it's 99%, we're just actually taking all the data and outputting the actual final file values. And there we go. So now our test map is done. We can go ahead and click test map, and that will load up on our screen. And there you go. Now that is, again, some default values. We have a 90-degree sector in there. We have small antennas, etc. But your usages, of course, will vary depending on your data that you put in, your terrain, etc. So keep that in mind as well. Once you get a coverage map, though, it's very easy to do other things. So I'm going to go ahead and hit edit coverage here. Let's say I want to change this to an omni antenna. Okay, we have our transmit power, we have all that. I'm going to turn down my required reliability. My client's going to average 25 feet above ground. And again, my antenna height is still 400 feet, so the antenna height really does not change. All that information looks great, and now I wish to re-render. All we have to do here is hit update coverage, and our map will re-render. As a premium account holder, in other words, a subscriber to our site, you can re-render these maps as often as you want. And that's very important because let's say you are evaluating a new tower site. You wish to go ahead and find out, hey, is this tower site going to be worth it? And then you also wish to evaluate, especially if it's on a large tower. This particular tower in question is like 1,300 feet. We're only at 400 and 800 foot. Back whenever we decided to make that change, you know, to also add 800-foot radios, that's probably something that you can sit there and go, how much more coverage would that give me if I had an 800-foot tower there? So those types of specs are definitely things that you need to look at for your business, of course, so it can help you make those business decisions. So there you go. Now we have an Omni coverage, and it shows us our coverage area as it pertains to that system. Now, again, we can use our different map views. We have the hybrid map, which is simply the satellite imagery plus the actual Google Maps or the roads, things like that. We can, of course, use our terrain. I find the terrain extremely useful. Again, as you can see there, there's plenty of places where we have hills and valleys. We're skimming the tops of the hills and not really getting into the valleys from this tower. Again, that's our coverage area. We also have, of course, just strictly satellite view, which allows us to zoom right in, see how that works. And a new feature that we've added recently is our Google Earth view. This is only if you have Google Earth installed, so you will have to go ahead and install that application. But once that's installed, if you hit Earth here, it'll go ahead and display this map in a Google Earth map. So now I can sit here, I can zoom in, zoom out, just like the Google Maps, but now I can come down, see my terrain. Again, I have to wait for your screens to load there. And of course, I can spin around, see the hills, valleys, etc. Now, this area is not the probably the best map for seeing this, but it gives you the sense and it gives you the ability to see that in a Google Earth overlay if you wish to. We're going to go back to our map overlay and then show you another feature that we use quite commonly whenever we are trying to evaluate customers. Basically evaluate, are they going to be a good customer? Are they going to be able to get a good link? And that's our instant path analysis, what we call the IPAs. So again, I'm going to switch back to one of the other views, so in my case, my satellite view. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use our address feature. Notice it's right over here to the left side. And I'm going to put an address in. And again, you can sit here and type the zip code. Otherwise, you have to have a city and state. You need something, of course, that we can geolocate against. We do that address search, and Google Maps immediately places a pin right here in the middle of the map and moves your map to show if you have coverage. Now, we're going to zoom in here a little bit more. And notice we're in the satellite view. The reason why I like the satellite view is because I can see the homes. In our case here, the home, whenever we talk to the customer, maybe just a little bit off. Maybe it's right here. Again, we can move the pin simply by double-clicking. Okay? Let's let everybody's view catch up there. So there you go. We have our pin and we have our coverage. Now, when we click our instant path, we have the option to either save this or not. Regardless, we have to at least put in a name. Once we hit don't save or save, if you save it, it'll show up as a link. If you don't save it, all we're going to do is display that link for you. So we process that in the background, and immediately we get a return value. So on the left side here is our Hillsboro Tower. We see our longitude, latitude, our antenna height, and then on the right side we have this new point. Now that new point is that new pin that you put into that Google map. Now you have an instant path analysis. Not only do we show the terrain data, but we also show all the land cover. So notice all the trees, heavy trees, no trees, fields, etc., and even some urban area. The little blue area right here is considered urban area. So all of that area, we have now an instant path analysis. Now, we use the data from the coverage map to generate this. But there's a couple really nice features about this. One of the big ones here is from New Point, we have an azimuth and tilt. So what this is saying is for the optimal aiming towards the Test Hillsboro Tower, you need to have your antenna aimed at 261.8 degrees with roughly 2 degrees of up tilt. That would give you the dead center of the 400-foot mark on the tower where our gear is. So again, whenever you send an installer out, this link looks good. It looks good. We should have coverage there. We would send an installer out to go ahead and attempt to install this customer. Now, I know this customer, I know this location, that is a customer. They can get signal. They get really good signal, actually. And in this particular case, whenever we send the installer out, not only can we send the installer out with a phone number, name, all that kind of information, but we also send them out with, here's the azimuth and tilt that you need on that radio to get the best signal. So at least they know the bearing. They can take their cell phone or they can take a compass and get an actual 161 degrees and know exactly which direction they need to point. Down below here, we have some more information. We have our radio system performance variables. We have all of our statistical loss, our urban loss. Notice that we're cutting through a little bit of the trees, so we do have some forest loss as well. And in this particular case, it's saying that our received signal should be roughly a -61. Now, if you're going through trees, obviously this is not going to be perfect because trees attenuate signal different ways. But given the facts that we are calculating a little bit in there, plus almost 6 dB of statistical loss in there, a -61 is very, very close to being accurate in our case. Note also we have our distance, 1.713 miles or 2.7 kilometers. Also down here at the bottom, we have a Google map, just a static map currently, but this shows you your path bearing and from site A to site B. Now, this is a really great feature for, again, end users, or your sales reps to use this. Now, let's talk about sales reps. We have the ability on the premium accounts to create sub-accounts. So if you click My Account up here, you have the ability to come down here, right here, first name, last name, email address, and to add a user. Now, this user will have, of course, a username, password, the email address is their username, and a password. But this user will not be able to edit any of your data. So with that said, again, as a sales rep, they can go in there and use the feature, but they can't sit there and make changes to your towers. And you can have unlimited sub-users if you wish to on your system. Another really big feature is the multi-coverage map. Now notice we have a number of maps here, and we wish to show our entire coverage area. So right down here we have a multi-coverage map. Now I'll go ahead and click New Multi-Coverage just so you can see what's included in this. But basically you have the multi-coverage map name, several different options here, as well as which maps do you wish to include in this multi-coverage. Now, the multi-coverage is a little bit different. It is a combination of the original coverage maps, but we actually merge them all into a much better copy, as well as we don't have opacity issues, things like that. Something you could do is you can sit there and take several towers. So we can take the Plas and the Pin Oak and the Pebble Creek, and we can click here on View Selected Maps. Now what this does is this overlays not one, not two, but 3 maps on top of your Google Earth. So there you go. The problem with that is that it's literally 3 maps. It's literally 3 files, and because of that, eventually Google Maps is going to get fairly slow on you, and it's not going to run, especially on a smaller workstation. So the multi-coverage map, when we submit that, actually reprocesses, re-renders, and creates a new combined coverage map. So as you can see here, we have a combined coverage map. Inside this combined coverage map, we have the ability to do several things. I'll go ahead and hit the Edit button here. Once you have created this, you can scroll down to the bottom, and we have a little iframe code for you. This little iframe code allows you to take this piece of code and copy and put it into the code on your website. Once this is on your website, if a user browses to your website, so I'm going to use one of our customers here. If we go to their webpage, basically what happens is they have pasted that link in here, and they have the ability, there you go, to see their coverage area in the multi-coverage map. Notice we do have the address search, so we can go ahead and type that address search, or an end user can go ahead and click there in address search for their address inside the coverage area. Now we have another feature though that a lot of people are not using, and we really recommend you checking it out. This multi-coverage map inside your website is very nice. But the problem, though, is that once the customer types the name and address, if they're outside the coverage, are they really going to call you? Probably not. At least you don't know where they're inquiring from. One of the problems that we have as a WISP operator is getting to know where areas you need to go are, or where you need coverage. So what we've added is a feature called data collection. To turn on data collection, what you need to do is go to your account, my account, up at the top, and see this little checkbox that says data collection. You simply check that. You check that, hit edit account, this updates your account, and then what happens here is if you have a website, so let's say this is your website here, and you want, say, can I get service? With data collection turned off, what's going to happen is they're going to, just like the previous website, they're going to get a coverage map, that multi-coverage map in the address field, just like we showed you a minute ago. That's great and fine and dandy, but now let's turn on that feature. So we're going to go back here. We're going to turn on data collection. It's just a simple checkbox. Hit edit account. The account has been updated successfully. And now we're going to take that same page and we're going to reload it. So there we go. Now we have a different page. Notice we have some information. What this is this is a simple form that your end users will be able to fill out. To find out if you're in our coverage area, fill out this form. Now, if we fill out this form and click submit, which I'm just going to put some blank data in here. We're going to use the same ones that we used earlier. And 50. When we submit this, one of the very first things, my address search is off, my zip code's off. If you had the proper zip code, they would immediately be zoomed into their location, showing whether or not they have the coverage or not. Okay? But that's really not the cool thing. The cool thing is whenever you go back to your multi-coverage map, every user that's done that goes into a database. That database, of course, is secure just for you. So let's take a look at that. So we go to our multi-coverage map inside the tower coverage site. That looks pretty. We have this button that says collected data. We turn on this and we get a whole bunch of stuff. Every user that submitted enough information for us to geolocate that data, the address on, we have already located that address and we've placed pins on this map here for you. So now you can find all these customers. You can click on them and see who they are, etc. Okay? And perform a path analysis if you wish to, etc. But now you can sit there and see groupings. Notice right down here. I'm hoping everybody can see my little map. Actually, let me just draw the spotlight here. Right here. Notice we have a whole bunch of pins there. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on that. And notice that we have a number of locations here in customer information that we can sit there and look at. And notice we probably have an area here that we need to get more coverage in, or we either have a lot of people in or we need to get coverage because people have done the inquiry. The difference is, though, is we have this data now. We also have the ability to go back to our account and view this collected data in a different form. So I'll click on this collected data. We can select one of these accounts and we can actually say, hey, this customer had signal, they had no signal, and do we wish to display them, yes or no? So let's say this customer had signal. We can update their color. Now they get a green pin. So instead of a yellow pin being a new customer or a new person that we haven't tried to get service or we know we have service, we have a green pin because we know they can get service. If they're way outside of our coverage area, guess what? They will have that basically a black pin or a different color pin showing that they can't get service. So this is a great feature for you to use to get that information. Now, that's kind of cool. I think it's neat. But there's even something cooler that happens. Something that happened in the background is an email was fired off with customer information, the form that they filled out to you. This was emailed to your sales staff. Not only does it give you all the customer information here, but it also gives you the path analysis to the 6 closest sites automatically in your email. You get the path analysis. So notice this Festus Tower here. This one actually looks it looks okay, but looks like there's some trees in the way. Hunter here, probably not. Pebble, no line of sight. Gillum, maybe. Frisk 900, maybe. Frisk Repeater, again. The point being, though, is that you have all this information already dropped into your email address. Dropped into your email. Now you have your salesperson give them a call and say, hey, we show that you're good. Can we schedule you for an installation? So as you can see there, that feature is all done in the background. The instant link path analysis there is done in the background after the user submits it, and you'll get that within a few minutes. All right, so that's the basic features of it. Now, we've talked about quite a few things, and I know, I'm hoping anyway, some people have some questions. If you have those questions, go ahead, view questions pane, and go ahead and type in those questions. I'm looking forward to getting some of those as well. Continuing on here, some other features, some other things that we haven't talked about is our links. We've seen the link whenever we did the instant link path analysis. That same multi-instant link path analysis can be done in the multi-coverage maps. So if you have this, again, you can zoom in, find a location here, put a pin in, and then instant path analysis here. The multi-coverage one usually takes a little bit to process in some cases, but that will eventually display up for you as well. Other items is you can create a simple new link. This is exactly what it sounds like. You can put a link name in here. You can say from this location to this location. This is really good for higher frequencies. So let's say you're interested in going 11 gigahertz licensed. You can put those frequencies in there. So let's do that real quick. Let's say we have a test link here, and we want to go to from the water tower, which is at 120 feet roughly, to that test Hillsboro tower, which is at 400 feet roughly, and we want to see 11 gigahertz. Let's start with 5.7. We're going to have our standard radio. Let's say a dish, another dish on the other end, and we create that link. So we create that link, our test link. It's actually already rendered for us, even though it hasn't displayed that. But there you go. Extremely quickly, and now you have a beautiful path coverage. Now, notice here we got an egg 58, but let's say we were interested in going with 11 gigahertz licensed. So we can change this to 11 gigahertz licensed. You can put in your different antenna gains, again, depending on that. We update our link. It's going to be ready. It says a few minutes. It's already ready. There's our link path again, this time in 11 gigahertz. And notice our receive signals neg 51. And, of course, it does show us our map of our link as well. Maybe we want to say, hey, that's not a problem. That shouldn't be a problem. I want to use a 24 unlicensed, 24 gigahertz unlicensed link. So we find our 24 gigahertz right here. That's unlicensed. You'd put the power requirements that you would have in there. They're probably not right, but I just want to show that you can make that change. And when we made that change, notice that our signal, even though we didn't change anything else, just the signal has dropped significantly in those particular cases. All right, we do have one, well, hold on, we got a couple questions. Let me see if I can break out my questions pane here so I can see them. So one question is, do we have any plans to make the site in another language? Currently, we do not have any plans. To be honest with you, that's the first I've ever had heard of that. So the answer is no. However, if there was enough requests for it, again, send those emails to support@towercoverage.com. Those would probably be acted upon if we had plenty of of requests. Another question is that can the client coverage in query form be edited? Currently, the answer is no, but I can see in this particular example, changing the language or something like that would be a need. My recommendation, again, submit that to the support@towercoverage.com so that we can advise the programmers that, hey, maybe the end users like you could change those form fields, which would probably make sense, and we can definitely get that done for you. So definitely submit that request. It's a very good questions. Let's see here. What other questions do we have here? Any plans to upgrade the instant path analysis to something else? The question specifically relates, I'm assuming, to this map right here. We have started a process in that, in which looks like we'll be able to view that in a Google Earth overlay. But as of right now, that image is a static generated one, so it would not be it's not able for us to overlay it into the Google Maps system. However, that's a good question, and again, I'll take that back to the programmers to see if that is something that could be done. So, all right. What about shooting links over water? The answer to that is, as far as a link over the water, as long as the Fresnel zones are not in the water, the link should not really have a huge effect. However, most of the links will have Fresnel zones in the water, and the answer is no, we would not take into account for that. There's a lot of things to take into account: the sea level, the current direction of the waves, things like that, and that's really kind of outside the scope of what we're trying to do. However, if your link path shows that you are above the Fresnel zone, all Fresnel zones, so if I can scroll up here, notice we have the 3 Fresnel zones showing up here in our link path. As long as the Fresnel zones are not encroached, that really should not take effect, but our system would not take into account humidity, etc. We assume basic information. We cannot sit there and go, okay, we're above water, so we're going to assume other things. So the answer is no, not this time. My recommendation, though, is that if you turn up that required reliability, that would give you extra statistical margins for you to ensure that you have plenty of extra say on the noise or plenty of extra fade margin in your link. Let's see here. How do we create cluttered data? The cluttered data is provided from a number of sources. I do not know exactly where that's at, where that's coming from, so I would have to get back with you on that question. As far as the data, how accurate as far as the U.S. is concerned, and I know you're not asking about this, but I'm just going to speak on that. In certain parts of Virginia and a couple eastern states, we go all the way down to 1/9 arcsecond data. As far as most of the U.S. and parts of Canada, I know we have 1/3 arcsecond data, which is, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's 3 meter data. Well, I'd have to Google that real quick, but it's 1/3 arcsecond data. I do know that above a certain parallel in Canada, you drop down to 1 arcsecond data, which I believe is 30 square meter on that. And it, of course, depending on where else you are at, obviously in the world, it depends on what terrain data we have. We always strive to get the best terrain data, land cover data possible. In the U.S., we do not use STRM data. Other applications will use STRM data. And the problem with STRM data is that it is typically fairly inaccurate. It's just the shuttle going over, shooting radar down 3 times. Trees, if it's during the summer times, the trees will reflect and give a less accurate signal. In the U.S., though, we have USGS data, which is, again, still down to 1/3 arcsecond data. But this is the terrain data, the U.S. National Geographic USGS data, and that data is highly, highly accurate. I would actually place that probably some of the most accurate data that's out there. So, as far as more manufacturers' default radio and antenna specs, it's a good question. We have the ability to issue radio systems to all users, but we really wanted our users to simply create a new radio system for themselves because different people use different radio specs. All those radio specs should be in the your radio data sheets, so it should be pretty easy to get. Are you talking about different just more antennas? We do have a number of antennas. I'll be honest with you, 99% of the time people do use the Omnis or they use one of the sectors. The signal difference between those are fairly close. In our case, we don't use ubiquity sectors, but we do use 120 sectors for like our 2.4 stuff, and we have found that a single Omni coverage, if we have 3 120 sectors that we use, is still pretty dang close. In other words, the small indentation where the lobes would not meet is significantly small enough that the Omni coverage is close enough for our needs. So we didn't need to make any changes to that. We don't need to create individual sector maps in those cases. Of course, your mileage will vary and your experience will vary on that. As far as this is kind of a calibration question, is how do we calibrate tree heights and how do we calibrate the penetration in trees versus frequencies? Currently, there is no, quote, calibration. What you would be able to do is to change either your client gain or your ARCS threshold to add or subtract additional loss in those cases. The current specs that we use for different types of trees currently meets the needs of most people. Now, again, if you have pine trees, you're definitely going to want to turn up that RX threshold some because it simply just does not go through pine trees as easily as it does the trees that we have around here. Currently, we do not have any other abilities to say, hey, these types of trees or these types of land covers have more or less loss than the default values. Those default values have been updated and have been adjusted a number of times, not only by us, but by other users in other means. So currently there's no calibration on those as far as tree heights, etc. We accept the defaults, and that's what we are currently using. So good question, good question. Actually, that's the first time I've ever had a question about the tree heights and penetration, etc. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, do we have any other questions, queries, posers, or other informational tidbits that I can answer for you? For those of you that are in North America, we do also have a North American public map. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Basically, it is a public map that lists any client that we wish to use. So you must also elect to get into this. And this is kind of the last couple features I want to go over. If you elect your multi-coverage map to be on the public map, it will show up here along with a pin and information for end users to find. We are trying to get these listed with a number of resources to find wireless ISPs and other wireless providers. Like that. To get yourself added to the North American map or any map that we may have, you simply go to your multi-coverage maps, and then you can edit this multi-coverage map. And notice we have a number of options here. I do want to kind of cover this real quick because one of the features is make this map publicly viewable. This can take up to 48 hours to take effect as we regenerate that map every, it's really a couple hours, but 48 hours is the most usually. And you simply have to check that button, that checkbox, to make that map public. We also have place pins on my sites, and if I check that and hit update here, it does exactly what it says. Once the map is re-rendered, I don't know how quickly it'll do it. But notice any tower locations that we used inside those. So basically these are the center points of each of your coverage maps that are included in the multi-coverage map. Okay. The very last one is a very, very new feature. As a matter of fact, we are still working on it, but it's almost there. This feature is allow state agencies to access the map. Now, this is really for, obviously, users in the United States. We have our North American map that we had mentioned a little bit ago. Currently, you can make these maps public if you wish to or not. It's up to you, okay? The issue, though, is that in the U.S. we have different state mapping agencies that are that we've been working with and we've been communicating with. And as we're starting to add these state agencies, what's going to happen is if you check that box that says allow the state agency to view this map and to use this map. So again, if I go back to our edit multi-coverage here and I check this, then we get what state is this map in, because obviously you may have coverage that goes across state lines. You can select which map that you can have access to. When you select that, what happens is the state coordinators, the state agencies, as we bring those online, and we're going to have a list of those states supported, will be able to access your data, that map data, and be able to use that to generate their state mapping projects. Most people are required in the United States to submit those maps to the state agencies. If you don't submit a map, then they require you to give them all your information, and they make the maps and charge you for it, depending on the state. But I believe we're going to hopefully bring in the Washington State, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Those are the ones right away. Hopefully Missouri, of course, and Illinois. If you have a state coordinator, a state mapping coordinator that you work with, and you would like them to just get that information from your maps already on our site, please have them contact us, support@towercoverage.com, and we can get them started. It's free of charge to them. It's free of charge to you. It's just an extra feature to the premium account holders to be able to give that information to the state agencies very quickly and effectively. Okay, we're going to make one last call here for questions. Looks like I got one or two more here already, but if you have any other questions, please go ahead and ask. Now's the time to get that information and ask us the questions that you may need to find out all the features. One question is for Canada, do we use STRM since there's obviously no USGS? Of course, in that particular case, we would use the STRM data if that is available. Again, it really depends on the area where you're at. If I do believe above a certain parallel in Canada, we drop to the STRM data because that is the best data that is available to us. So, and keep in mind, you know, the STRM, it's good data. It's just not as good as like the USGS data. So, again, better data we can get in. If you have a better source that you think we can use, please email us, because if we can get a hold of that source and we can put it on the system, it helps everybody in that aspect. So we want to be able to create the best system with the best data for you. We want to update that. We want to be able to download all that data. Right now we have over a terabyte of data as far as just land cover and terrain data around the world for our worldwide user set. So of course that will be helpful for everybody. All right, with that said, do we have any other questions? So we'll have that last call here. The question that we would have, well, we have two more questions here. Is the attenuation versus frequency, is the attenuation through trees or land cover different at one frequency versus another? The answer is yes, it is. So 900 megahertz attenuation should be significantly less than, let's say, 365 or 5 gig, and it should be even less at the TV white space frequencies. The last question is, I guess, a duplicate. I don't think he got the answer, but the default radio manufacturer specs should be listed in the data sheets. So that's why we kind of put the radio system in our system, so that if you use, let's say, cadmium canopy radios, you can put those standard systems in there. If you use Ubiquitys, you can put them in there. If you use some other brand, you of course can put those standards in there. As far as antenna specs, if there is some type of antenna that you have a .ant antenna file, and if you Google out there antenna file creator, things like that, there are some creators that can help us with that. But if you have those files and you would like to see that on there, you of course can email those to support@towercoverage.com, as long as it's a good coverage. We actually had to remove some of the Ubiquiti files because some of them did not, they were inaccurate, the .ant files. So as long as we can verify that that's a good coverage map, then we can of course add those to the system as needed. All right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that we were informative and we gave you guys some good ideas and some really neat stuff to take a look at. Some of the new features that we have been using, this data collection feature, I really think, based on our research and based on our feedback, is really an underutilized feature, and I really hope that everybody can get to use on those. If you do have any suggestions, we always love feedback. Support@towercoverage.com will get that to us as well. If you have any other issues, please feel free to contact us. Our support email, again, support@towercoverage.com, one last time. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. For those of you that may have friends or may have other associates that need or should have seen this, just so you know, we will be, we have been recording this, and eventually it will be in a format in which you can view in our fact system. And that's something, one of the very last things I wanted to point out is that we do have a fact page here. Inside here, we try to list all the new features as they come up. We have how-to videos, all that kind of information is in here, and hopefully we cover 99.9% of everything inside this particular system. So please feel free to review this, and again, as I said, we should have a video, this video online within a day or two. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.